And in a little bit, when you get a chance to ask a question, we'll get you to be able to respond to see does it pick up the responses from attendees. That way, somebody misses, they don't miss out on those questions. Okay, so did I click? Let me share screen, entire screen, share, click on slides. Okay. Can you do a thumbs up if you see the slide? Is that what I'm sharing? Okay. So we got to lesson 4 of the slides because 3 was at the end where the labs were and everything. So I'm going to make sure y'all have time this week to go through any of the labs and quizzes from 1, 2, and 3. Wanted to do today 4 or 5. That way tomorrow could be 6, 7, where Friday only has 8 left. And just a heads up that next week we're off for Memorial Day Monday. So if we do 2 each day, that'll get us through the 8 lessons. So this is lesson 4 for module 1, AI Tools Overview, introduces the major tools used in the workforce. This lesson will introduce students to the major AI tools used by modern workers across different industries. We'll explore ChatGPT, Copilot, and Gemini, 3 powerful AI assistants that help professionals write code, analyze data, and boost productivity. By the end of this lesson, you will understand what each tool does, who uses them, and how to choose the right tool for different tasks. The targets are to be able to identify and describe the 3 major AI tools, Chat, Copilot, and Gemini, explain the primary purpose and strengths of each AI tool, recognize which one's best for a certain workplace task, understand how AI tools are used across different job roles, demonstrate basic navigation and account setup for at least one AI tool, apply appropriate tool selection to real-world scenario examples, and articulate the role of AI assistants in modern workforce productivity. Key vocabulary to go back to, and whether you want to do note cards or always referencing the slides: AI assistant, prompt, ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, machine learning, natural language processing, inference. That's the key vocabulary. So, and you could put in the chat if you aren't able to talk right now, we could look at a few of these questions. What do you think an AI tool can do that a regular computer program cannot? And this could be like an example like we were looking at with like ChatGPT, some of the things it could do versus think of a traditional computer program.
I think that the AI tool can just generate and process output. What you input in. So whether it's a question or a guided prompt or what have you, it gives the response based on that. So, but your regular standard computer, it's just it's very exact and it's very I guess step by step, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Step by step, what it was trying to do, because we could think of a computer program that came on a lot of like the in the app that has the games like Solitaire, right? Computer program that lets you play solitaire. It doesn't do any of the other things that we just discussed and you brought up of answering your questions right and having a chat with it. It's not creating images for you. So yeah, following step-by-step rules, have a lot more freedom with AI tools. And then you also mentioned creation, so especially with our Gen AI tools. We've already talked about autocomplete and viewing that as a type of AI on our phone, so it completes our sentences for us, suggesting if you have Grammarly too on rewrites and also for misspellings and everything. And we talked about chatbots and saw the example that Domino's had, and we've probably used chatbots on various websites, so we have covered that. if you can ask an AI assistant to help you with one task today, what would it be? So I guess thinking with your own work using an AI assistant, what would be something you would want to offload onto it once you knew how?
I think um I've only used it forever. Well, not so much my work, but just how to how to tailor my email, how to tailor my resume,
Okay.
how to um and also like for my my church, I use it like specifically for tailoring. How do I structure my, because I'm a Sunday school teacher, so
Mm-hmm.
how do I structure my lessons for the month. And then I also have one of my students who has Down syndrome, so being able to make sure that that everybody is included and all the activities are on the same playing field.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, if I need to do something that's one-on-one, I could prompt all of that into the AI to be able to give me just some ideas. Sometimes I can use them. Sometimes I can tailor it, or don't use it at all. But it's just been a good way, at least for me, to kind of just not use my brain so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can be a lot, when you're, especially when you're lesson planning, and if you've ever been in education, so
Mm-hmm.
it can be a lot sometimes, and so it definitely kind of lessens the load a little bit.
Yeah, I wish it was around whenever I was in public education, especially for lesson planning. And you brought up the great point of for individualized instruction for when a student maybe has a disability. So, having the child with Down syndrome in your Sunday school class, you're limited on time. If you have people with different learning styles and everything, it could get very unrealistic to try to tailor things to individuals when you have a group as well. So it's great that you were able to use it in that way. And then you're seeing how that would be the same thing teachers would do in public education, as well, that it could help empower them that maybe they weren't being able to level the playing field and give the material and the best way for that student to show what they know. And AI could give them some different, help you brainstorm and some alternative assignments and things like that. It would have been great in public education when we had, schools that lack resources and stuff. We had in Winston County, we had a student that was in junior high and he had come there and he was from somewhere around Saudi Arabia, and he spoke a different language. And I know schools are supposed to provide somebody's like, no, he just slipped through the cracks that he's sitting in class, doesn't know what's being said because he doesn't know English. So I had to be like, I hadn't encountered that yet, of someone completely not knowing the language. So I was using some tool to at least give him the translations. But then there was that disconnect between what all was he understanding. So he would be able to at least start reading like a text we were reading in his language. And then I would have to kind of give him cues of like a thumbs up or something and see if he did it back. Well, I don't know if he's just smiling or giving a thumbs up back too. And we had to talk about that was real difficult, that that child could have really gotten behind and worked just because of this massive um, divide in our communication. And yeah, AI would be very helpful with that because you could have like the auto translation and have it with the microphone and then being able to go back and forth. And so yeah, that would have been very big. A lot of things would have been great to have AI for around then. We kind of mentioned why companies would want their workers to use AI tools already because we talked about it boosting your productivity and helping you be more efficient. And in business, they say time is money. So if you could get task A, B, and C done faster, and still at the same level of output that's acceptable, then they could view it as saving money on certain resources. And what concerns or questions do you have about using AI at work? I think you already mentioned this, that you didn't know yet about using it at work because you're in healthcare, right?
Yeah,
do y'all have a policy already on what's allowed?
I'm sure, but I stick to just the traditional, you know, basic way of doing things, and like I say, outside of work it's of course it's different. So I don't, try to chance anything, like that. So but I think maybe but I think I said one of my former coworkers, uh because she used it a lot. I think it was Grammarly, but and I think I remember, when Grammarly first came on, was it was there, but not a whole lot of people knew about it.
Hmm.
And so she used it a lot, in that regard. But
You're
um,
probably safe to use something like it because then you're coordinating with other workers and stuff for like
mhm,
messages. We talked about those high stakes things that you definitely
yeah,
have to see if you had a certain policy, when it comes to like HIPAA and things like that, to what level can you put any type of information in your daily in any AI tool, and you definitely don't want to get in trouble with work. So that's a thing that you'll be able to look into as you start using AI tools and different ones in your own personal life. You might see opportunities for you helping out in your work, and you could always check with the supervisor, make sure nothing would violate a policy, and see if it's something that would be able to help, even if it's one small task. Okay, so we're going to look at how major AI tools transform modern work, learn about chat, Copilot, Gemini. Those are three assistants that help millions of workers do things like writing code, analyzing things, and creating things. And by the end of this lesson, you will know what each tool does, when to use it, and how it applies to real jobs. So I created this image with AI of a Swiss Army knife, thinking of these tools, right? And that's a very multi-purpose thing. So when you need to cut a package open, you have a knife, you have scissors as well. You got a file to file, like your fingernail. You have a Phillips head, you got a corkscrew. So Swiss Army knives, of course, give us multiple tools in one nice package. And that's kind of like when you have something like Chat GPT that could do multiple things with the image creation, with helping you write code, write text, and so on. So that's what I think of as something like a Swiss Army knife. So that goes into like what is an AI tool, and that also was literally an image of a tool to get us thinking of that. No more than that, something that a human could use the same way as you would use like a hammer. So an AI tool is software that understands your question or instruction and gives you a helpful response. So we could communicate with it in natural language. Unlike a calculator that only does math, an AI tool can do things like writing essays, debugging code, answering complex questions, and brainstorming ideas. So at least my calculator was smarter in high school than one I had like before high school, because I had one of those TI-84s. So it had a few more features, but they're still, like we said, following certain rules. So it did math, but it had some games on it. And it had a little bit of like lessons on like Spanish and English and French and Spanish, but yeah, that wasn't the same thing as like Duolingo. You weren't able to ask like a certain word or a phrase and get it to translate it. It was just pre-programmed in it, and those type of calculators you were able to add stuff like that to them. And you interact with AI tools by typing a prompt, a question, or an instruction, is plain and simple what that is, and the tool responds within seconds. So it's valuable that we're able to interact with AI the same way as we do with interacting with the other people. We usually prompt them for some sort of reply. So either we're giving a question or just something that you're saying leads to that. So saying good morning to someone, right? It's not a question. We're making a salutation to them, and we do greetings, and that usually leads to a greeting back. And then questions usually, of course, lead to answers. So it works the same way. So then I got it to generate this example of the Swiss Army knife, now thinking of generative AI, and I liked what it came up with, that I wanted it to include like a paintbrush to show the art capabilities, a quill to show the writing code and doing things like creating apps, having like the computer mouse, music production and generating song ideas and mixing for you. I'll have the headphones, and then we have the camera for helping out with photography and like photo ads for campaigns. And we have examples that it gave on the text, like maybe you're getting it to generate a Renaissance portrait, or maybe you're getting it to create an epic soundtrack. And so that's kind of the visual anchor I wanted to have for that is that Swiss Army knife that is our AI Swiss Army knife. So why do workers use AI tools? Well, they save time by automating the repetitive tasks. Okay, so definitely things that could take up time, like, okay, what am I going to say in this email? Okay, how am I going to organize this data into some sort of chart? Am I putting it on a spreadsheet? Am I just having it like bulleted out? Okay, and doing things like debugging code. So they could boost creativity by helping you brainstorm ideas. You mentioned helping brainstorm ideas for like lessons for like Sunday school and explore new approaches. Reduce mistakes by catching errors that you might miss. So especially if you have a lot of information that you're putting in and wanting feedback on, we know that's why we have like editors and stuff for books, because even the same person's pair of eyes can look over something multiple times, and then you've put your blinders on that you're just going to overlook the problem. A lot of times I usually can catch when I look back over something in my own writing, like grammatical errors. What I'll miss is if I somehow like doubled a word, like of, or like the, and then your brain might just skip it. And so sometimes small things like that. And then um, if I'm going really fast and like typing a response to somebody, I've noticed I've gotten bad about, even though I know the difference. I will say like OUR instead of ARE sometimes, and the theirs THERE. If I'm going fast, I might put the wrong one, but then before I send it, I go back and look and see that I put the thing. So it just shows you how we've gotten so fast on trying to give a message out, and at least having Grammarly or some sort of auto suggestion that's on your phone usually catches those things like, oh, you meant this. And ultimately you're freeing up your time for more high value thinking instead of the routine work. So if you could save time with your checking your emails in the morning and like in the afternoon, right, you might could catch up on backlog stuff you might be able to do. Go above and say, hey, I got some time if you want me to help out with like a company newsletter planning for some trip. And so hopefully freeing up some things that would be more creative. So of the tools, ChatGPT, we think of our writing and thinking partner as what it is, its main bread and butter, but it also could do things like helping write code, and it could generate images. But it is very strong with natural language processing, meaning it understands how you're giving it a message in English, and it could respond back to us in English or other languages that it is capable of communicating with. So Chat was made by OpenAI, and it's an AI assistant that excels at writing, answering questions, and brainstorming. It could draft emails, summarize documents, explain complex topics, and help you think through problems. Chat works in a conversation style. You ask a question, it responds, and you could ask follow-up questions to refine the answer. And it is free to use with a basic account. And I know we all said that we had it and we're already using it. And that's most of the tools have a free that we'll look at tier, and then you have more capabilities with paid tiers. And want to go ahead and say that yeah, nobody put in any card information on a tool unless you're sure that you want it. If it is a free trial or something, make sure you cancel ahead of time so you're not being charged for something and forget about it. But ChatGPT is definitely very powerful, and I do the paid one. That's $20 a month is the tier that I'm at. That opens up a lot of things of helping me in personal life and in work. So it's definitely been a great value for that amount. So an image to solidify it being big on the writing would be the creative storytelling, helping you do report summaries, copywriting, and having this idea of like an old typewriter, and now it's empowered with this technology. Now, Copilot productivity and code helper. So it's Microsoft. And so Microsoft computers, especially new laptops and everything, will have like a Copilot button. I've seen ads for those. And Copilot is already made to work with all the Microsoft Office applications. So if somebody's using that Microsoft Office and package and using Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, as well as Visual Studio for coding, it's letting you know that that AI tool is going to already be um, better suited for those um, applications because it already is made to work with them. So that way, if you're in your document in your Microsoft Word document, it's already going to be able to do things and suggesting rewrites and everything, analyzing data in your spreadsheets that are in like Excel, designing presentations in PowerPoint, and Visual Studio being one of the places that you could code in that application. And Copilot will learn your writing style and offer suggestions as you work. So not just fixing it grammatically, but seeing kind of what you normally write at in your formal, in your work life, and then in your informal, if you're a creative and writing fiction, poetry, anything like that. How do you normally form sentences? What kind of style do you have? What's the tone of that one particular writing? And it's most powerful when you already use Microsoft tools daily. And here we have an image of a person using, say, like GitHub Copilot while they're working code, while they're in a coffee shop getting to work remotely. So Gemini is Google, okay? And so you could go to when you ask questions now in Google and it's like Ask AI, and you'll see that. Well, if Google's using AI, it's Gemini, which you could go to. Like we said, Gemini was one of the examples you could have went to the other day instead of Chat GPT. So Gemini dot Google, there it is, google.com/Gemini. I use the free tier for it. Now it's strong for research, summarization, and creative tasks. It does image generation as well, and it for a while it was beating ChatGPT, which we said Chat uses Dolly. Well, Gemini was way better at creating real looking things, not having as many imperfections like hands being weird and stuff, and that's because they use Nano Banana, and then that kind of led them in a race with each other where I see that chat has added in to make theirs better because I've tested some images in chat GPT when before I wouldn't get as many good results, and it seems to be closer now. So I have created some images in these lessons with both Gemini and with chat, and then there are tiers of course that are paid. So it's going to integrate with all your Google Workplace, so Google Docs, Gmail, and everything. So if you're already using Google services for work and in personal life, it's letting you know this tool is going to integrate very well because it's already compatible. And Gemini is particularly strong at analyzing large amounts of information and pulling out key insights. Image to similar to give us a mental visual anchor of Gemini that maybe we're looking at key market trends from a lot of data. Okay. Being able to make strategic insights in a company across locations. Okay. How to optimize your resource allocation. So things like that. So then comparing these big contenders, it's like, okay, which one do you pick? ChatGPT is best for general writing, learning, and brainstorming. It's also the one that most people mention in passing of all ages, and they'll usually maybe just say chat for it. And that's what students were using in school to help them with their homework and writing essays. And maybe they were breaking the thought, making sure were they using it appropriately for their class. But ChatGPT is the one that's definitely been utilized very heavily, and that it's kind of just in our lexicon now of saying using chat for something. Copilot, you might have heard people mention, but especially those that were already using it for Microsoft, and then your software developers probably would mention Copilot because they would use it. Then Gemini, well, we have the phones that, so if somebody has a Google phone, they could have Gemini already enabled in it. So people are going to be hearing about Gemini the same as Apple Intelligence with the iPhones. But really, they all have their own unique features, and ultimately, the bottom line saying they're all constantly improving. So they are in competition with each other. So there's going to be times where you might check out one of them and think it's better than the other one at one task, and then months go by, and the previous one might be better now. So most professionals use more than one tool because of the unique strengths for different tasks, and maybe you have your own preference of sticking with one for a while because it does learn how you talk and everything. So like my chat GPT of course has a lot more time in it than my Gemini. So if I'm doing something like organizing tasks for say like my fiction writing or anything like that, it already knows the types of things that I've written, so it can make a lot more tailored suggestions. And I also could keep all my projects separated where I could let it know when to use that former history for something else. So like it doesn't need to know like it needs to know my previous writing history for writing tasks. It doesn't need to put my work history into that. So there's certain things when you could keep the data separate. The support that I was doing for our students or technologists at NCA, that was in its own project because it didn't need to know anything else outside of that. And that's kind of how I structured any workflows that I was doing in the AI tool, and I'll preview that later in ChatGPT once we start going into these tools more, and I could show kind of some of the workflows that I used. I know Devin will be able to show workflows that he used with his writing as well and different business planning. So, of course, different types of job roles that would be heavily using and adopting AI today would be marketing professionals can use it to draft social media posts, data analysts to explain AI, explain data sets, software developers to write code, customer service to draft responses and organize information, HR professionals to use AI to draft job descriptions and summarize applications. That's also with HR using when you've applied for jobs like the application tracker system and everything that they could go through all these resumes and pick out the keywords, but also see which ones are the output, of course, would be which candidates are the most recommended for this position that fit the requirements and think that they would excel. Content creators could use it for brainstorming topics and outline articles. And nearly every job could benefit using AI in some way. So this was, did it swap to this link that I clicked up for you that you see, will AI fix work? I wanted to make sure you could see that. Okay, good. So I found this article talking about that then. So how is it being embraced? What is it changing across the workplace? And so this was an article that was in there that you could definitely go through and read, but it had some good insights on, let's see, when workers broke down their day, they were putting so much time before into like Teams meetings that they're on, like Microsoft Teams meetings, could be 23% of their time, emails and replying 15%, and even breaking down the chat back and forth in the chat logs in Teams. And then when it comes to like PowerPoint and building presentations and maybe some more of the creative side, wasn't as much to it. So on the creation side, it broke to 43%, communication 57, and we know communication can be handled very well on your drafts and rewriting for you with AI tools. So it could definitely help out with that. And so ultimately, you have a majority of people saying they don't have enough uninterrupted focus time during the workday. And you've probably been there, and I've been there before, and you don't feel like you're getting enough of what you're wanting to get done. And so this had some really good insights in it. And I think there was also, let's see, these were the obstacles that were from the study as being the main obstacles to productivity. Having inefficient meetings. I'm sure you've been in inefficient meetings, and they also can go very long. One thing AI tools, that could summarize the meetings if somebody wasn't there, and tracking the agenda and all that. So then somebody can make sure that they didn't miss out on key details or somebody mentioned something at the one specific point. Lacking clear goals, having too many meetings, feeling uninspired, and not easily finding the information that I need. Those are the main obstacles that people were facing in their work. I liked this quote. It's fascinating that people are more excited about AI rescuing them from burnout than they are worried about it eliminating their jobs. So when that's letting you know that mind shift is changing, when people were more worried about AI taking jobs away, it's starting to be embraced as a helper, and maybe it could help them keep the job and avoid burnout. And then it has future, based on this, future trends of where it's looking for saving time, everything. So what work in 2030 might look like. And this was the breakdown of like what the brain would get to, what you would get to focus more on using the AI tools of what it might be. You might give your AI delegation and your prompts to be able to get it to help you might be 21% of your um brain capacity of that day of what you're putting into it. Notice it's opening up things in work you didn't think were that important before, like emotional intelligence and being able to give more like judgment and analyzing things, creativity. And then for thinking of job security in the future, most job leaders, 82%, are seeing the need for those AI skills to be utilized in their workforces. So we are going to see more and more like job applications requiring people to have, like basic skills and prompt generation and things like that. So that's why this is important to learn these now, since this is the trend. So getting started, the first steps, using any of these tools start the same way. Just like we did with chat, you're going to go to any of the tools website or open the app if you already have it installed. They're all going to have usually a free account tier. You could choose to have them tied to like your Gmail account. And then they're all made where you can give your prompt to them and enter in something like a question, an instruction, or maybe you give it, you don't even have to give it an instruction. You can give it an example of something, um, like a recipe, and then enter it and see what it says about it. Then, if you didn't give the context, you could ask it, does that sound appetizing? Would that be something that would please a crowd, like at your party and things like that? And then you read the response and ask follow-up questions if needed. And that usually is in any of the times that I've used AI, especially if it's a high value task. I'm usually asking a good bit of follow-up questions of it. So in the guided build for today, it has you signing up for one AI tool. So you probably want to sign up for one you don't have already if you didn't have Gemini account. And then in the workshop, you will compare responses from different tools and decide which is best for your needs. And in your reflection journal, you will think about how these tools apply to careers you are considering. Okay. And I will say, so that I did say I gotta get through. I've read Devin's AI and the his reflection and response that was sent, and then I saw yours come through the email. So I'll hopefully be able to get to that this afternoon to give feedback on. And so right now, that's fine the way that y'all were email and then just have them saved like in your Google Drive that's with MS Coding Academies. You probably want to have a copy in your own personal one too. And then I'll let you know what's the best way moving forward for once you figure out how to, if we're going to upload everything into Google Classroom, or if y'all just share the folders that have everything in it with me and then I can put it where it needs to be. So I'll let you know that. Okay, so I guess since you had already done Chat GPT, had you used Gemini before? Have you already created an account?
Yeah, I did like it was like a Google AI um Coursera course once before,
Okay.
and
It had you
I
use
think they
Gemini?
you had to use Gemini, and that was my first time really just diving into it because I heard about it, but I didn't dabble too much into it. But I will say I learned something. Uh, because I tried it yesterday evening during the lessons, the differences between the oh gosh, Gemini Copilot and
Mm-hmm.
Chat GTP, and Gemini is like we've already discussed. It's more it's better for if you are needing like a, I don't know, like a guide or like a, just, I don't know, anything you need dealing with, if you just need something kind of just printed out for you in a visual.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to do like if you want to turn it into like a PDF or like a spreadsheet or something like that, I noticed yesterday that Gemini is not the best for it.
Yeah.
It gave me like a big, huge list. So what I did was I copied and pasted one, and I popped it into a chat GPT, and it was fine. And both did very well with generating like picture references.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so which I didn't see too much issue there, but yeah, so chat it's more so like kind of like laid back chill, if
Mm-hmm.
you will. It's almost like I'll give you what you need, just tell me. But Gemini is a little bit more structured, very structured with how it operates, and so I thought that was pretty neat. But then I would prefer to use Gemini now over Chat versus just I guess it just depends on what I need it for or what I'm
Mm-hmm.
needing. I would definitely now use Gemini, and just really just kind of work my way through um, the, uh, the platform itself, and then of course continue to use my chat because I've used it for a long time now, so I'm quite familiar with how it works.
Yeah, it'll be good to try some different ones, but yeah, the
Hmm.
things that you know that you normally do in your workflows, chat's probably already because you have so much in it, it's going to be
Hmm.
very strong for that. Like I said, there's strengths to both. And then it was good to note what you did. That's the right thing. If it didn't give you something like Gemini was lacking on that, and you didn't think it was able to do it, to take that output and then put it in what you were familiar with and knowing it was going to
Hmm.
be able to put it into a spreadsheet or something. So yeah, you could always take the output from one tool and put it in as input in another.
Right.
So this is a guided one, so I'll do it with. I'm going to pull up my Gemini, and you could use Gemini too. This one, and we'll do this. What are three skills that will be valuable in the workforce? And it had an older year for some reason, so maybe we do like that article had in 20 like 30. Pick a little bit of a future year. So let me pull up the correct tab that I'm wanting to use. Okay. And so if you see my Gemini too, when I pull it up, notice if you've used it already before, you'll have your, and you could open your sidebar or collapse it or or open it back up, you'll have all your previous ones. So that way you could go back because it might be something like you asked a certain question on a topic like planning a trip, right? Then you can name that chat and go back to it and have the thing. So I'm going to ask what was our question? Three skills that might be valuable in the workplace. And then another thing you could do is you could click on the area where it says flash. They do have some like new versions, fastest answers you'll notice all around help. And if you're doing things like math and code, it suggests clicking on that other one. So you see those arrows by your submit that you could click on. And so I'm just going to leave it on the all around help. So it says flash. If you want it to be a certain thing, you could click the plus if it was going to be like create image. Um, or if you want to give it file for an example of what it's using, if there's data you need to give it to upload, things to add from your drive, things like that, and other tools that you have. I'll just hit submit and see what it comes up with. According to this source out of Africa, Morego, it's talking about just a lot more automated tasks. Advanced analytical literacy and judgment. That's what the other study showed. And like the brain, some of those skills, emotional intelligence, empathic communication, continuous adaptability, and lifelong learning. What were some of the ones that it was saying would be based on whatever future year you picked? Give you time to read through the output, see if there's anything that stood out to you.
I like the number. I think it's the number two, the emotional intelligence and emphatic communication. Yeah, that's definitely a big one. Um, Especially now, when you're looking at just how to communicate, and to just to have empathy, is pretty telling. And I'm sure it will change and develop years to come.
Yeah, I liked that one too. That's why I wanted to add. We know we could do follow-up questions, so seeing what it says specifically about empathy and why that's important in the workplace and having more of that. So I've seen this before, like in work, something could be read the wrong way, like if something seemed terse or short, right? Somebody misreads it on the intention. It might not have been meant to come that way to you, and then you receive it that way. It could create, it can lead to a hostile type situation for you.
Yeah, I've had plenty of those emails come across my screen, and it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Of course, with more people working hybrid and people who aren't working remote, they're already likely to feel isolated, invisible, or disconnected. So, definitely empathy helping to bridge that physical gap. Leaders and peers who practice active empathetic listening, checking in on a workload, recognizing when someone is hitting a wall, and acknowledging effort rather than just metrics build deep organizational trust. And of course, it's usually going to be giving you follow-up questions, things like that. So if we wanted to have like an infographic created from this of like what's coming in the future, we could click the create image. For some reason, mine is even the way that looked was different when I pulled up how my it usually has the image when I go to Gemini. Note at the bottom, you do have the warning that Gemini is AI and it can make mistakes. So you don't take everything to heart as just take it for granted that it's true. So maybe tell it to create an infographic that shows, probably stick to one of the things that shows empathy in the workplace. And then I could even decide if that's going to help the, maybe not the fastest answer when generating an image that might lead to more imperfections. So probably leave it at the flash where it was at. And mine's the free tier because I haven't upgraded or anything, so you should have all the same capabilities. Okay. While that is loaded, so we asked that question, AI generated the response. We read it. At the bottom of the response, type a follow-up prompt. Can you give me one specific example for each skill? So we could have done, we asked a follow-up about empathy. Okay. And then it'll be your turn with, you could use Gemini and it actually lets you be free on the prompt that you want to ask, such as write a professional email. We had it give us an email example the other day. So if we want to learn a specific tech term and explaining it in a way that you might understand better, like machine learning, a step, 5-step plan to improve public speaking skills. You might want to test one out that's something for your Sunday school class, and maybe dealing with like the lesson plan. And you could do for this part, it says chat, since you already used it a bunch and you want to take some time to fill in the thing, you probably want to use Gemini with that up. And then it compares the two, so you could do it in both in chat and Gemini and see with the same prompt which one did better. Because then it does have you put in the comparison. You could keep that simple on if you wanted to have like a Venn diagram of things that they shared, or if you just wanted it to be in just a Word doc, separated by which tool it was, strengths you notice, weaknesses, and that'll be in your time too. For lab time, so you could start on that whenever we're through with the lesson slides. That's really the time that around y'all's work schedule in the afternoons that wanting to get through the start getting where we're going through the slides and the new material in the morning and the guided things so then you'll know how to do it and then you're being able to in your time in the afternoon complete the labs and quizzes. So you definitely want to give y'all time to catch up on any backlog today. So that would have been all the new material up to the lab, and then do note the best practices when you look in those slides. So let's see the image that we got. Empathy in the workplace, a framework for collaboration and trust. When, of course, the main thing I'm going to look for is does it have AI imperfections? If it's something I would want to use, make sure people's hands are the right way and everything. So understand perspectives, their view, my view, active listening, consider different points of view, avoid quick judgment, validate emotions. The hearts make it seem like this might not be an appropriate workplace thing, having the contact and the thing like that. So then it might need to be edited on the image. Okay. I see that it's trying to show emotion. Okay. Trust, drive team collaboration. Okay, I didn't notice a misspelling. Task Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. One thing it'll do when you get it to create infographics, sometimes it'll even do a simple error, like you'll have the images are good, but if it's a list of like different numbered steps, it might be like 1, 2, 4 and skip 3 or something. I've had that happen a lot. And then you're like, how is it messing up on something that simple? So, but you could give it a thumbs up if you think it's a good response. That's going to let it know in that chat that when it's creating images, it's kind of along those lines and what you're looking for. I do like when you give a bad response that you could say specifically to help it better if it didn't follow your instructions, any things like that. If we wanted to redo it, then we could always share our images, download it, all that. Follow up of that's not what I was looking for, if that's what you want, where you wanted to change it. If you wanted to break each of those down into like one image where it could pull from that, those are the types of things that you could follow up with. Okay, so I'll give you time to do that. Now I'm going to take a rest break and I'll leave the call up, and you can take a break too, and the rest of. But we'll do the give you time to run through whatever prompt you want to put in both chat and Gemini, where you could answer those questions in the response, or at least um, jot down so you have it for later to complete that lab, just to see at first what the differences are. So if you want to take a little time to think of a prompt you want to use and try it between those two tools, and that will complete the lab for that, and then we'll be able to start lesson 5. So I'm going to go ahead and open that one as well. Put it by the other one. Okay, I'm gonna take the break to a restaurant. You have the break to 10:50, 9 minutes on the thing, and then coming back, I could let you have that lab time of to 11 of your prompt, and Brian and us discussing that, and then that way we can have lesson 5 be complete in the recording before lunch, and then it's after lunch as you're getting to work on the labs in this and the previous slides and any quizzes if you haven't finished yet. And I'm going to be available, that I'll be on the call while working on other things and catching up on anything that y'all have submitted. Okay, so I'll be back at 10:50. I will mute and cut the camera off right now.